India versus Pakistan's cricket matches are up there with the most watched sporting occasions in the world.
Shot delivery.
With these highly intense games a direct result of decades-long tensions between the two nations, they're also something that can't be replicated on any other stage. This video is about saving cricket's greatest rivalry, India versus Pakistan. Saying this rivalry is dying in modern times is not me saying that it's not selling out stadiums or there aren't any good games coming out of it anymore. For example, the Asia Cup 2014 match where Afridi hit Ashwin for 2 back-to-back sixes and Pakistan ended up winning, and even the much more recent T20 World Cup game where Virat Kohli single-handedly showed us why he is the best player in the world right now and led India to victory. These games are no doubt modern-day classics that fans of both teams still talk about today. But there's a simple and predictable formula that this clash now follows. This is because they don't tour each other anymore. It starts, of course, with an ICC tournament announced every year or so with an India versus Pakistan game, usually front and center. With such a huge fan base and so much hype, the match sells out quickly no matter where it is in the world. With India having a much better record than Pakistan in ICC tournaments, they usually end up winning. The tournament goes on. Hype generated, money made, rinse, repeat. This never-ending cycle is now just a tool for generating hype and revenue for ICC events and sometimes Asia Cup matches. And the mistake here is that it represents profiting from the hate and toxicity between fans of both teams rather than celebrating the sport or even bringing the fans together. There's this idea often talked about when mentioning these two countries, called cricket diplomacy. It's the idea that the love of cricket in these two countries can mend bridges burnt by political and geopolitical tensions. But as an Aussie, who's a fan of the Ashes and of course cricket in general, this rivalry doesn't really excite me as it's trying so hard to. But that wasn't always the case, it seems. Going back and watching old India-Pakistan matches, I see why this rivalry is a shadow of its former glory. Why purely in terms of cricket and not looking at the political aspects, this sport can actually mend a seemingly hopeless relationship. My favourite form of the game is the purest one, Test cricket, and I'd like to talk about an India-Pakistan Test match, namely the Chennai Test from 1999. The pitch in Chennai was not an easy one to bat on. Pakistan was bowled out for 238 runs in their first innings, while India could only get a lead of 16 runs before they were bowled out for 254. The game was on, and it was clear both teams needed something special in the second innings. And that's exactly what ended up happening.
And that's a big one.
Pakistan's second innings was seemingly a shaky one.
He's gone off it again.
With the Indian bowling attack striking consistently on their home turf, there was one man that stood between them and certain victory. While the modern superstar Shahid Afridi was already making a name for himself back in 1999, he still had no Test centuries to his name when he came out to bat.
Powerfully struck that full toss.
With his trademark style of batting that gave him the nickname Boom Boom today, he hit the Indian bowlers to all parts of the ground.
He will keep this.
With some lucky escapes along the way, his innings was impressive and well controlled. With the Indian crowd initially not as supportive for obvious reasons, they slowly warmed up to him and realised they were witnessing something great. And they cheered him on when he finally reached his first Test century and finished on 141 runs. And Pakistan were bowled out for 281 runs. India's second innings got off to arguably an even worse start. With 4 wickets down in no time thanks to Pakistan's legendary pace combo, Wasim Akram and Waqar Younis, India needed something special to keep this game worth watching. And who else to do that for them other than the greatest test batsman the world has ever seen, Sachin Tendulkar.
Playing the lap. Once again playing that lap shot.
Struggling with a bad back, he was playing one of his toughest innings ever against this quality Pakistan bowling.
Mondia will have to hurry. He scores a direct
The crowd
hit.
cheered every hit, right until he managed another century amidst all of
Mondia
this.
also has made it. That's an excellent.
But then, when he was on 136 runs and India was so close to winning the game, he got out.
What have we got here? Sachin Tendulkar is knocked on the door. It's still closed.
Just missed the off stump.
The rest of the Indian batting closely followed because of Saqlain Mushtaq's brilliance.
He's bowled it. The ball has gone.
And Pakistan ended up winning by just 12 runs.
Pakistan have won.
This match had everything that you could possibly want to see in a test match. The individual performances and fighting cricket from legends of the game, the emotions and expressions of the players changing and evolving across all 5 days, and the best display of a fierce rivalry between two nations that doesn't end in toxicity. Yeah, despite the rivalry, the Chennai crowd stood for the Pakistan team's victory lap after the match. An Indian crowd giving a standing ovation to a Pakistani team touring them is something that I thought I'd never see. And it's surprising how we went from this to where we are now in this rivalry.
And in the end, I would like to thank the crowd over here. They really supported us all the way.
Well, Sachin Tendulkar.
And that's the tragedy that I'm trying to showcase. The fact that under every cricket social media post these days, fans of both teams just call each other names now and are incredibly toxic, unable to see that this is how cricket stakeholders want it to be now. That toxicity from fans is what keeps this rivalry profitable now, and something like the Chennai Test would simply be bad for business now. Good cricket and fans appreciating it is not the focus of this rivalry, and there's no effort being made to make it that way, quite the opposite actually. The two countries actually have a very balanced record playing against each other in Test cricket, with an equal number of wins at home and Pakistan having an edge overall. And the last time they would play a Test match against each other was in 2007, when Pakistan toured India. Now, these two countries continue to play Test cricket with varying levels of success. But I'm more interested in the comparison between their two most famous players currently and why their legacy is immensely important in the future of this rivalry. I'm talking, of course, about Babar Azam and Virat Kohli. Babar, while being in a much earlier stage of his career than Virat, still has an impressive Test cricket record with an average of 45.8. And an even more impressive one-day international career with 1900s at an average of 56.7. He's earned praise from all around the world, and even from Indian greats, such as when the legendary opening batsman, Sunil Gavaskar, said his shots reminded him of Tendulkar in the nets. And in 2022, Virat Kohli, the person he's most often compared to, said Babar was probably the best batsman across all formats at the time. Babar has many records under his belt, including the fastest to reach 17 ODI centuries, which he did in just 85 innings. And with just 2 more centuries, he'll have more than any Pakistani in one-day internationals. With a career so celebrated in its infancy, it's easy to see why he's so often compared to his Indian counterpart. But Babar has a lot to live up to still, and many ways to go before he can touch the level of some all-time greats. In recent times, he hasn't been able to perform and is trying to regain his former greatness. The way he deals with this current lack of form will probably determine the trajectory of his career and legacy. Speaking of his counterpart, what can I say about Virat Kohli that hasn't already been said? 8,849 runs with an average of 49.15 is beyond impressive in 113 Test matches. And it gets even better in his ODI stats, where he scored over 13,800 runs at an average of 58.67 in 292 matches. Of course, in the 2023 World Cup, Virat became the batsman with the most centuries in one-day internationals, 50 to be exact. In the same tournament, he set the record for the most runs by an individual in a single World Cup, ending at 765 runs. He also has the most Test wins for an Indian captain, making it clear that he can truly do it all. There is simply no other player like him, which is why the point of this is not a direct comparison with anyone else. The fact is, there's no need to compare the overall statistics, but the contrast of Virat and Babar's influence is not entirely fruitless. Fans need to appreciate what they have before it's gone, and try to take steps to make the most of it. Of course, it's extremely unlikely that we ever get to see Babar and Virat on the same team in something like the IPL, because political tensions would never allow that. And a Test match where we get to see them play across 5 days is also unlikely, despite interest from the ECB wanting to host one at the Lords or Cricket Australia at the MCG. How tragic is it that the same people who caused the conflict between the two nations now want to profit from it and use it to save Test cricket from obsolescence? But what do you think? Is this rivalry something you want to see preserved? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe if you enjoyed this.